Faithfully delivering value by interpreting the world's great books. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today I'm interpreting the book called Ending Procrastination, with the subtitle How to Stop Procrastinating and Live a Fulfilling Life. The author, Peter Ludwig, holds a master's degree in computer and data science. Additionally, he founded a company that uses findings from neuroscience and behavioral economics to help individuals grow and improve. I think we have a lot. What is procrastination? Medically, it's defined as a widespread harmful form of self-regulation failure. Simply put, if you struggle to convince yourself to do what you should or want to do, and instead waste time on meaningless stuff, you likely have procrastination. For example, even though an exam is coming up soon, you're still scrolling through your phone, avoiding studying. Another example, facing too much work and not knowing where to start. You go out to grab coffee, then tidy your desk, but can't get into the groove. However, procrastination isn't pure laziness. Lazy folks do nothing and feel fine about it. Procrastinators actually want to do things, but can't start right away. Afterwards, they often feel helpless, even filled with guilt and frustration. Many people confuse procrastination with relaxation, but there's a clear difference between the two. After relaxing, you feel energized and dive into meaningful activities. But procrastination only drains your energy, trapping you in a vicious cycle. So, why do people suffer from it? Procrastination, is there a way to end it? This book not only analyzes the causes of procrastination, but also provides 4 effective ways to overcome it. The brilliant insights in this book have also been endorsed by Philip Zimbardo, an honorary professor at Stanford University. Interestingly, the author decided to write this book after a near-death experience. About 10 years ago, Peter suddenly couldn't move in bed, with half his body not responding to his brain. In that moment, he thought he was going to die. Luckily, after treatment, everything got back to normal, but this close call with death made Peter resolve to stop procrastinating and live a full life without regrets. When a publisher asked him to write the book, he took on the challenge and applied his own procrastination beating methods to writing Ending Procrastination. Next, I'll cover the book in 2 parts. First, why people procrastinate, and second, how to end procrastination. All right, now let's dive into part 1. Why do people procrastinate? Procrastination isn't a recent thing. People have suffered from it since ancient times. As the ancient Greek poet Hesiod wrote in his poem Works and Days, "Don't put things off till tomorrow or the day after. A procrastinator won't fill the granary and will waste time on aimless stuff." Work thrives through diligence, but a procrastinator battles with ruin. The ancient Roman philosopher Seneca also warned that while we waste time hesitating and procrastinating, life slips away silently. Although procrastination isn't unique to modern folks, it truly troubles many of them. A survey shows about 75% of college students think they have procrastination, a number even higher than the rate of students pulling all-nighters. So, why do people procrastinate? Actually, the causes of procrastination aren't fully clear. One view is that it stems from one or several relatively stable personality traits. If someone has traits like perfectionism or low self-esteem, they're prone to procrastinate in various situations. Another view suggests procrastination is caused by unstable environmental factors, like when facing an urgent task or temptations from fun activities, people tend to put things off. In the author's view, decision paralysis is the root cause of procrastination. What is decision paralysis? It means in this era of information overload, the more choices people have, the harder it is to decide, and the brain might even collapse under the flood of data. Once this happens, folks become unwilling to take the next step on things they want to do or should do. A study on clients of American insurance companies found that the more retirement savings options available, the fewer people actually save for retirement. Here's some data. In the retirement savings plan market, for every 10 new options added, the number of people investing decreases by about 2%. If there are 5 options, 70.1% of people can make a decision. But if there are 15 options, only 67.7% can decide.
If there are 35 options, only 63% can decide, and so on.
Despite this, savings plan providers show no sign of holding back. In fact, the number of retirement savings plans in this market is multiplying exponentially, and the resulting decision paralysis leads more people to simply stop saving. Uh, Ultimately, the scale keeps shrinking. Now that you know possible causes of procrastination, you might wonder, is there a cure? Next, we'll cover part 2, how to end procrastination. The author believes that finding the right motivation, disciplining the body, focusing on a positive future, and maintaining objectivity are keys to ending procrastination. The 4 most important methods, which we'll now introduce one by one. First, let's discuss motivation. In the real world, motivations are often divided into 3 types: extrinsic motivation, goal-based intrinsic motivation, and process-based intrinsic motivation. What's the difference? Which one is the right motivation to reduce your procrastination? First is extrinsic motivation, which refers to motivation sparked by external forces and environments. The most common in motivation management is strengthening extrinsic motivation through rewards and punishments, known as the carrot and stick approach. For example, in sales, hitting targets gets bonuses, the carrot, while late arrivals in car pay cuts, the stick. Though extrinsic motivation often gets things done, it has 2 significant drawbacks. First, when people do unwanted tasks, reduced dopamine release lowers happiness. Beyond happiness, dopamine affects creativity, memory, and learning ability. Research shows overusing extrinsic motivation can actually reduce performance. Second, dissatisfaction from extrinsic motivation is socially contagious, especially among colleagues. Typically, one complaining team member affects the whole group's morale and output. What if extrinsic motivation disappears? Some accustomed to external drives may become unable to work independently, as it suppresses future initiative.
For example, students used to studying for grades often stop learning after graduation when pressure vanishes, since studying isn't as addictive as binge watching or gaming.
So it seems extrinsic motivation isn't the cure for beating procrastination. So, what about goal-based intrinsic motivation? It refers to motivation sparked by goals you want to achieve without external rewards or pressure, often praised in self-help books and coaching programs. Although it can boost productivity somewhat, it doesn't bring long-term happiness. Instead, it leads to unexpected frustration and a weird kind of addiction. Why do we say that? To figure this out, we first need to understand how goal setting relates to the brain's prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the brain's command and control center, where higher level thinking, like decision-making and self-control, happens. Importantly, the prefrontal cortex also lets us think about the future and imagine the happiness from achieving goals. This happiness drives you to dive into work with passion, but soon the feeling of not meeting the goal catches up. Therefore, during the goal-achieving process, people often miss out on the benefits of increased dopamine levels. For instance, better brain function, stronger creativity, and the ability to learn new things effectively get overshadowed by anxiety over unmet goals. But once the goal is hit, the brain releases dopamine all at once, giving you a strong sense of satisfaction. However, this feeling, though intense, fades away fast. Next, a phenomenon called hedonic adaptation kicks in. It means when environmental changes bring joy, people quickly get used to them and bounce back to their usual happiness level. Hedonic adaptation catches people off guard as they get used to their achieved goals. Minutes, hours, or at most days after reaching the goal, the good feelings slowly vanish. However, hedonic adaptation treats happiness and pain equally. A study looked at how happy lottery winners were and how much pain people who recently became paralyzed experienced. The results showed that just a year later, the happiness levels of both groups were almost identical. So, how do goal-driven folks deal with hedonic adaptation? Simply, they set another bigger goal work hard to achieve it, then set more goals in a cycle. They might own mansions, luxury cars, and dream jobs, but at the same time, they're often depressed because they have it all yet lack long-term happiness. Uh, Finally, let's talk about process-based intrinsic motivation. Unlike goal-based, it's influenced by vision, your answer to how you want to spend your life. It focuses on action rather than outcomes, on the process rather than the goal. As the old saying goes, the journey is the destination. Guided by vision, you don't need to reach a goal to be happy, nor get trapped in negative emotions. While doing vision-aligned activities, you'll frequently experience present moment happiness, free from motivation's downsides. For example, charity workers find joy in helping others. Researchers delight in each small discovery. Some might ask if process focus causes aimlessness. It doesn't. You can set milestones to confirm you're on the right path toward your dream. The difference between goals and milestones: goal-driven people work just to achieve targets. In contrast, milestones are helpers, signposts indicating if you're heading the right way. By now, you've realized to beat procrastination while gaining lasting happiness, the best motivation is process-based, free from sticks or goals, heeding vision's call.
That summoned motivation is process-based intrinsic motivation.
If you haven't found your vision, find a quiet place and spend time conversing with yourself. Consider these questions. Whose quotes do you most love citing? Which philosophies resonate with you? What are your top 3 core values? How do you want to spend your time? How do you wish to contribute to society? Your version 1.0 vision becomes clearer as you answer these. But refining vision and strengthening intrinsic motivation is clearly a lifelong process. Of course, vision alone isn't enough. You need effective action, making your body obey discipline. Here, discipline means the ability to persuade your body to do what you intend. Key discipline skills for beating procrastination: self-regulation, overcoming decision paralysis, and stepping out of comfort zones. First is self-regulation, or listening to your inner voice. Procrastinators know they must do meaningful things, but why can't the body ever obey the inner voice?
The reason lies in the evolutionary history of the human brain.
The oldest part is the brainstem, also called the reptilian brain, handling basic reflexes and instincts. Later, the limbic system, responsible for emotions, evolved in mammalian ancestors. Then, after a very long time, the youngest part of our brain emerged, the neocortex, responsible for reason, logical thinking, planning, and language. Since the brain developed gradually, connections from the older limbic system to the newer neocortex are much stronger than the reverse. So when the rational neocortex gives orders, the more powerful limbic system disobeys, letting emotions override reason.
Fortunately, through self-regulation, you can counter this mechanism.
Self-regulation is the ability to consciously control emotions. The better this ability develops, the more you can persuade your body to obey discipline, resist temptations, and reduce procrastination. However, self-regulation isn't about shutting off emotions, but avoiding entanglement with unhelpful ones that enslave you. For example, fear when facing potential strangers helps avoid danger. Self-regulation won't interfere, but negative emotions toward complex work aren't beneficial, so self-regulation intervenes. So how exactly does it work? Can we improve this ability through practice? In this book, the author explains self-regulation using the ancient Buddhist metaphor of the elephant and rider. Imagine 2 creatures within each of us, a wild elephant and a rider controlling it. The elephant symbolizes our emotions. The rider represents our reason. Their size difference illustrates the imbalance between limbic system, emotions, and neocortex, and self-regulation is the rider's ability to control the elephant. The more capable the rider, the better they guide the elephant in the right direction. If the rider is weak or tired, they lose control. So how do we learn to control and permanently tame the elephant? Research shows self-regulation capacity is limited. Relying on cognitive resources, like a computer's CPU,
Each task uses resources, open too many programs, and the computer crashes, etc. Every time you convince yourself to make a decision, it drains some of your cognitive resources. Once you've exhausted all cognitive resources, you lose self-regulation ability. Emotions then take over. Good news, you can replenish cognitive resources throughout the day. They largely depend on nutrients, especially simple sugars like glucose. So, drink fresh juice for glucose or do low-effort activities to let your rider relax. For example, a 5-minute walk can fully recharge your rider. You can also increase total cognitive capacity. People with strong willpower often have greater cognitive capacity. Willpower resembles muscles. It strengthens with training. Like when running, set small goals and repeatedly counter the "I can't run" thought to build willpower and discipline. Earlier, we learned decision paralysis comes from too many choices. Decision paralysis not only causes procrastination but also makes you regret choices later, trapped in what-if thinking. To solve this, consciously reduce daily decision-making quantity. When decisions are necessary, simplify and systematize the process. The most effective method: ask which task best helps achieve your personal vision. Finally, let's discuss stepping out of comfort zones. Everyone has comfort zones. Physical, like warm beds making mornings hard, or social, like group conformity. But to realize your vision, you must constantly step beyond comfort zones, achieving personal heroism. And like someone introverted pitching projects publicly to get angel investment. Or a homebody studying abroad to pursue dreams. Though heroism usually describes extraordinary acts, it's fitting for daily achievable behaviors too, like courage to rescue someone from subway tracks or willpower to beat procrastination. Both are conscious steps beyond oneself. Heroism within the comfort zone just varies in level. In this book, the author introduces a simple method to train heroism. You can draw a big black dot on your forehead with a marker pen, then walk around with it outside. For example, take the bus, go shopping, or chat with people. People will definitely look at you with strange eyes, but once you get used to those odd looks, you'll gradually stop being bothered. You'll become comfortable being different and independent, reducing social pressure. Eventually, you'll get used to stepping out of your social comfort zone. Standing out from the crowd, as Albert Einstein said, those who go with the flow rarely go further than the crowd. Independent thinkers may find themselves in places no one's ever been. The more freely you navigate outside comfort zones, the more likely you'll experience happiness beyond others. Now, let's discuss the third method to end procrastination: being future-oriented positively to resist negative emotions. When pursuing your vision through right actions, you'll feel happiness. But sometimes, even when dedicated to your vision, encountered problems can leave you confused and frustrated. That's when resisting negativity and letting positive futures guide you becomes crucial. Research shows negative emotions are closely tied to the amygdala in the brain. As one of the brain's oldest parts, the amygdala acts like an alarm detector, primarily sensing danger to enhance survival chances. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, when ancestors heard rustling grass, the amygdala assessed risks and alerted through strong negative emotions, helping them survive. To prevent ignoring dangers, the amygdala is extra sensitive to negative information. Thus, amidst information overload, people drown in negativity, becoming learned pessimists, growing unhappier, and victims of learned helplessness. And learned helplessness often causes procrastination. What is learned helplessness? Let's examine a classic experiment. In the experiment, scientists placed a hamster in a box and added a transparent lid on top. On the first day, the hamster tried every way to escape. It hopped several times but couldn't get out of the box, constantly bumping into the transparent lid. So how does learned helplessness cause procrastination? Imagine a repeating cycle, starting with idleness that makes you feel guilty. Then guilt leads to self-doubt, and doubt lowers your cognitive abilities, leaving you helpless. Then negative emotions and "I can't do it" attitudes drain your cognitive resources, leaving you unable to act, so you do nothing again, staying idle. So how do we break this cycle? Maybe we can find inspiration from American veterans. As known, after war trauma, veterans have high rates of depression, illness, and even suicide. Luckily, therapists from the Hawaii Psychological Association found ways to help. Research shows human brains operate from different time perspectives, called orientations, determining how much you think about future or past, the negative and positive aspects of the past. Due to war experiences, pre-therapy veterans focused on negative past. Most believed life was ending, leaving no room for positive future orientation. Simply put, they weren't looking ahead. The first therapy step was boosting positive future focus, reminding them of time's value and asking how they wanted to spend it. Igniting personal ideals. Some veterans decided to write memoirs. Others felt lecturing youth was meaningful, but just boosting motivation and future focus wasn't enough. If newly inspired veterans hit real-world obstacles, it only add another negative experience. Thus, therapists needed to help them handle negative pasts, teaching how to shift from negative to positive past focus. For example, therapists guided veterans to see that while their experiences were horrific, witnessing war might help prevent future wars, reframing the past positively. By focusing on a positive future, the veterans escaped the abyss of negative emotions. Ordinary people can also break free from learned helplessness, not confined by the illusion of transparent boxes. From above, you've learned to improve motivation, discipline your body, and adopt a positive future orientation. Now, you only lack the final piece to overcome procrastination, maintaining objective rationality to clearly understand reality. Unlike the previous three pieces, objective rationality requires filtering valuable information from complexity, reducing decision paralysis by focusing not just on yourself, but also external factors like natural laws, ethics, and social rules. Humans perceive the world through senses. Everything we see, hear, or feel enters our brain as data streams. The brain evaluates this data and makes decisions accordingly. These decisions determine our actions and resulting outcomes, like spitting out tea when heat receptors signal it's scalding, or hitting brakes immediately when seeing taillights flash while driving. These decision-making rules are mental models. Scientists evaluate how well each corresponds to reality, defining objective rationality. Clearly, someone believing prayer alone solves African famines has low objective rationality. Conversely, knowing starvation causes death shows at least average rationality. So, what extreme actions might someone lacking objective rationality take? In the US, a man named MacArthur Wheeler robbed two banks in broad daylight. Strangely, he made no disguise attempt, no mask or hood. Police identified him via security cameras and quickly arrested him. Shockingly, even when shown footage, he couldn't believe it, muttering, "But I put lemon juice on my face." Turns out, he believed lemon juice made him invisible to cameras. What sounds absurd to ordinary people was an unquestionable truth to him. This is a classic lack of objective rationality. How does such unbelievable irrationality like the lemon juice robber happen? Here we must mention the famous Dunning-Kruger effect. It refers to less competent people drawing wrong conclusions from poorly considered decisions while being unable to recognize their own shortcomings. This judging one's actions is a cognitive bias phenomenon. In other words, less capable people often overestimate their abilities and can't face their own inadequacies. After improving cognitive abilities through training, people realize how delusionally confident they once were. In the lemon juice robber's mind, he concluded lemon juice made him invisible to cameras. Unwilling to admit stupidity, he preferred believing the footage was fake. Research suggests the Dunning-Kruger effect might be the brain's protective mechanism. A patient who lost his right hand communicated normally when doctors discussed his healthy left hand, but pretended not to hear when they mentioned his missing right hand. Brain scans showed this wasn't conscious. The patient's damaged brain subconsciously blocked information about his missing hand. There are even cases abroad of blind people who couldn't believe they were blind. These extreme cases show the brain might ignore competence revealing information as self protection. Hearing this, some might ask, why meddle and force others to admit incompetence and ignorance? Because non objective rationality, even when well intentioned, harms others? There's a reason people say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. For example, many murderers, long after committing terrible crimes, still believe they did right. Take Anders Breivik, who killed 77 people in Norway. During trial, he still firmly believed he was right. His mental model remained unchanged. So, how do we combat our own non objective rationality? How can we reduce procrastination by avoiding the Dunning Kruger effect? The author proposes several effective methods. First, improve your abilities through education. As Socrates once said, the only good is knowledge, the only evil is ignorance. Training and education help less capable people accurately evaluate themselves or others, discovering if meaningless tasks consume them or if cognitive limitations cause negative emotions. Now, second, establish reliable information sources, especially crucial in the information age. Generally, academic journals and research reports contain more reliable knowledge than tabloids or anonymous blogs. Trustworthy sources reduce decision costs and procrastination from decision paralysis. Third, don't hold strong opinions about things you know little about. Lack of information or media distorted facts create fertile ground for the Dunning-Kruger effect. Social media comments reveal posters often considering themselves experts on everything, though they're actually mediocre. Identifying true opinion leaders also reduces information noise. Fourth, question your intuition. Not just doubt, but actively challenge it. By constantly questioning things, you'll actively seek imperfections in your mental models and find ways to improve them. As behavioral economist Dan Ariely said, our intuition is often wrong. It tends to make us choose the simplest or most habitual things rather than the most correct. Think carefully. Aren't the simplest or most habitual things exactly what procrastinators do meaninglessly? Additionally, the author mentions methods like developing critical thinking, refuting your own views, avoiding arbitrariness, and seeking feedback, which we won't detail here. Well, by now, you know procrastination is a widespread cognitive dissonance. The author believes it stems from cognitive resource depletion amid information overload, ultimately causing decision-making collapse. You've gained 4 effective methods to end procrastination, but during implementation, the world constantly tempts you to slack off and hold you back. To move forward firmly, learn to have inner dialogues and regularly check if you're following your vision. Are you following your brain's decisions, staying positive about the future, keeping things objective and rational? That's how you build your growth on solid ground. This is exactly what creates lasting change. All right, ending procrastination. How to stop procrastinating and live a fulfilling life. That wraps up our interpretation. Reading notes are below the audio. See you next time.